The Trump administration is cutting the Social Security budget, firing workers, and grabbing hold of the most sensitive data in the Social Security system. Millions of people in the United States are angry, they're scared, they're up in arms. What are Trump and Musk planning?
If ever there was a topic which needs the history in order to be understood properly, this is it. So let's go back to the middle of the 1930s when Social Security was first established. Before that, in other words, for most of the history of the United States as a country, there was no Social Security. When you got too old to work, either because your age or you had an infirmity or an injury or an illness or other people in your family depended on you and you couldn't go out to work, you were on your own. You had to find some way to survive. Maybe you would beg. Maybe you would go to your local church and stand in line on Sunday with a bag, hoping that you could get some food. Yeah, you had nothing. Or you turned to your children. And if your children were living on a tight budget, you could have real trouble in your family because they would want to help you, but they then would have to sacrifice for the children they had. It was a mess, and it was very tragic for millions of American families over most of our history. Then we come to the 1930s, and please remember with me, we just had the worst collapse in the history of capitalism. October 1929, everything fell apart. Stock market crashed. Millions, tens of millions of people were thrown out of work. Hundreds of thousands of businesses went belly up. The government had no money because unemployed people didn't pay income tax because they didn't get an income. And businesses didn't pay their taxes because they were bankrupt. So never did the government have less money. And what did it do? It passed the Social Security system because there's two socialist parties, the Communist Party and the CIO, the big organizing drive of the labor movement, got together and put unbearable pressure on the then President Franklin Roosevelt. Roosevelt didn't create Social Security or give it to anybody. It was taken by the action of masses of people in the very demonstrations that Brian just mentioned. But I want to stress, the government had no money and passed one of the most expensive programs in the history of the country. It committed itself to give every person 65 years of age or older a pension check for the rest of their lives, no matter how long they live. Wow. Well, how do you do that if you don't have any money? And why am I stressing this? Because today, Musk and Trump and Republicans and Democrats, unfortunately too, will be heard over and over again suggesting we don't have the money. Well, we have vastly more money now than we did when the program was passed. Don't be fooled. It's got nothing to do with the money. You know what Roosevelt said when he was asked, where are you going to get the money from? He joked, being a very wealthy man himself. He said, I'm going to go to where the money is. And that's with the rich people and the corporations. He hit them with taxes. He borrowed from them. Bingo, bango, the money showed up. There's never been a problem of money. It's only a question of the political power of the working class. It either gets it or it doesn't. That's the issue. If you want to preserve it now, you'll have to fight for it again, just like Brian reminded us with that slogan. So that's the first thing. The second thing, it was decided that the way to handle this over the long run was to make it work, and this is called a pay-as-you-go system. It's a simple way of saying we're going to take money out of people's checks as they go through working age. After they're finished with high school or college, they go to work, they get a check. Out of that check, and many of you, of course, have noticed this in your checks, money is withheld, usually with the initials FICA or another kind of abbreviation that helps you know that's what that's about. That's money taken out of your check, an equal percentage these days. If you put together the old age pension, the disability allowance, and now the health insurance, you put all those together and it works out to 7.65% of your salary is taken out. And of your money. You don't get that. It goes directly to Washington and is handled by the Social Security system. And your employer is required to give dollar for dollar matching. So it's 7.65% of your salary comes out of your salary, and an equal percentage of your salary is contributed by your employer. And that's your pension program. That's your government-mandated pension program, which, by the way, exists in most countries around the world. Nothing unique about the United States. We came rather late to that process. It had been in reality, for example, in Germany for many decades before the Americans decided to join to do it. All right, now last part. Here's how it works. Money is withheld, but now you get the power of the rich and the power of the corporations. Does everybody pay 7.65% of their salary all the way up to no matter how much they get? Answer, no. Only, this year is, I believe, $176,000. The first $176,000 you earn this year, 2025, you'll have the 7.65% taken out of your paycheck and sent to Washington to build up your personal Social Security account. Okay? But if you earn more than $176,000, which quite a few million Americans at the very top, 4 or 5 million, I don't know the exact number, who get more than that, you don't pay on that. Let me make sure you understand. Middle and low income people, every nickel you earn, you have 7.65%. If you earn more than $176,000, all the dollars beyond 176, no Social Security withholding whatsoever. Nice if you're rich. Saves you a bundle. And if you're worried that the Social Security system has enough money in it, well, one of the easiest solutions would be to say that we live in a country where everybody, no matter how much you earn, has to contribute to what makes a society decent, namely giving a retirement that's livable to its elderly folks and a health coverage as well, et cetera, et cetera. Now, a couple of particular points, because they're so important. To fund the pensions, we do not tax income other than from labor. It's very important. If you earn money from stock because you buy and sell stocks, that income, because you buy at $1 and you sell at $10 and you keep the $9 difference, that's called a capital gain income, there's no Social Security deduction. If you earn money by lending at interest, you're rich enough to do that, the income, the interest you earn, no Social Security. If you own shares of stock that pay a dividend, no Social Security. Well, only the rich people own most of that. 10% own 80% of the stock. So that 10% is earning a bundle of income, most of it for them, no Social Security at all. We just said you don't have to. As if it weren't a matter of the society's commitment to decency, like educating our children or keeping our roads clean. We take care of our elderly, or we don't. Last point. for horrible reasons, this program got called an entitlement. And the way that word has been used by conservatives, it's as if Social Security were some form of charity. No, 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 no. The bulk of the money is your money that you put in across a lifetime of your work. Private employers, very important you understand, have many times used the argument when they fight with unions. We don't have to raise your wages as much as you're asking, because after all, you've got a government pension. In other words, the employer says, I have to pay that money to Social Security. I'm not going to pay you as big a salary as I have to because I have that extra payment. So you've actually paid in two ways. Money has been withheld, and the wages you've been able to enjoy have been pressed down. When you put it all together, you should not allow anyone ever to tamper with this, and that's exactly what Trump and Musk and conservatives have done. And here's the simple reason. It's a very big program. It's very expensive. It's pulled in all that money from, remember, our labor force, 170 million Americans work. They all have their money withheld. That's a ton of money flowing to Washington. And the greedy politician sees that and says, wow, I could go to the rest of the people and say, I'm not going to raise your taxes. I don't need to because I'm shortchanging all the people on Social Security. What you're watching is a manipulation of the budget, but behind that is an attack on one of the most important gains the working class of the United States ever won, which it won again at a time when mass unemployment and the government kept saying, we have no money. There's another point that I would like to add about the importance for young people. It's important to understand that young people have an enormous stake in all of this. In the 1930s, here's how it went. The people pushing for Social Security spoke up especially to young men and women, people with young children or developing their families, saying, remember how bad you felt when you couldn't help Grandpa and Grandpa who needed a little bit better. They weren't eating food correctly. They didn't have the proper quilt to keep warm at night. And you wanted to help them and you tried, but you had your own children. The Social Security system will do something for elderly that you won't feel guilty and they won't feel burdensome on you. This is important for every family in America in the way that you love each other. Don't let the rich people deny you a decent relationship in and with your own family.